Welcome to episode, I guess this is 2 of the NAIA season update here. We did a little bit of a preview previously with the William Penn coach Luke Bentley. Today we're joined by head coach of Missouri Baptist, Tom Young. So thank you for coming. Really appreciate your time. And what we kind of prepped here today is wanted to go over what we think of the rankings right now. The NAIA rankings came out yesterday, and it was, I think, the third ranking of the year that came out. And we're, a month and a half into season here. I guess about a month into season, right?
Yeah, that's right, Jared. First, I
So
want to say, hey, thanks, thanks for having me on. But yeah, third rating period here.
third rating period. So talk to me about kind of, let's take this group by group here of like, who do you see as kind of the top 3 teams? I think in the ratings that came out the other day, I'm pulling it up right now. It was Masters 1, Park, Missouri 2, Vanguard 3, and Ottawa 4. Is that kind of where you have it right now, or kind of what are you seeing from that top group?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that top group, I'm pretty similar there. Number 1, Masters. You guys are doing some great stuff out there. I mean, 8-1 wins over Grandview, St. X, Lords, Benue twice,
Been
um,
twice. Yep.
Northridge.
That was a
Uh,
fun one.
Right. I got to watch that on ESPN. You guys, doing some good stuff. Love to see the NAI with the win there. And then the one loss to CUI. I mean, right?
Yep.
Like that resume right there is, I'm pretty sure everybody on I think actually we had one guy not give you guys the first place vote on the second period, but on this
I
third period,
know.
you
Someone
had
voted for
everybody.
Ben U right after we beat him.
Right. I don't know what he was looking at,
I,
but
I,
yeah,
I was
no. So
laughing at
I
that
got
a little
you.
bit.
Yeah, so I got you guys number 1 on that one. Um, but
Uh,
2,
Talk to me about where you're at with number 2.
yeah, I keep Park at 2. It's tough. I mean, they're always there. It's really close. I mean, I'd love to see them Vanguard match up. It's those are my 2 and 3, I'd say there. I mean, Park had a 5-setter win over us the other day. Um, they beat ACU. They got Ben U, they got Westcliff, and then the loss to Masters, lost to you guys. So just, to me, it was like, all right, well, they've lost to the best team that I think a lot of the coaches have seen. So yeah, I got Park there at 2, and then Vanguard at 3. Vanguard, I'd like to see play a little bit more here into the season. What are they, 3-0 right now?
Yeah, the 3-0. So this is the one team that has played the least amount of games. And so I think everyone's struggling to say, how do we rank these guys? Because even going into the second rating period, I don't think they had played a game yet. And so I think our conference rater decided to switch things up and move them down to 2 and move Masters above Vanguard. Just because we had gone out to Chicago, then gone out to Benue and played Park, and we had 5 ranked wins at that time. At this point, it's 4 with Lords dropping out. But they flipped that order a little bit. But I mean, Vanguard's still technically, I think, one of the only, maybe the only undefeated team in the top 10, right?
Yeah,
So they,
correct.
we'll get into this later, but the big challenge, and this is going to start to reveal things, is when we start conference, which is later this weekend, and my team Masters goes down to Vanguard on Saturday, and so that should be a good match for sure.
Yeah,
So,
I was
all
gonna
right.
I was gonna mention that. I know we're gonna talk about that a little later, but yeah, that's gonna be a one to watch for sure this weekend.
Yeah. Now, it seems like the top group, and I'll continue to go down. So, the rankings had Masters 1, Park 2, Vanguard 3, Ottawa 4, William Penn 5, Menlo 6, Benedictine Mesa 7, Missouri Baptist 8, Grandview 9. So, in that top 9, 8 of the 9 are either Heart of America or GSAC Conference, Midwest Conference versus West Coast Conference. And it seems like that is where the concentration of all the top teams are this year, and that's true of last year as well. Um, Talk to me a little bit before we break down the order and kind of how do you rank the second in GSAC versus the second in Hart? How are you ranking your conference? How do you view your conference? Seems like the top few teams are Park, William Penn, you guys, Missouri Baptist, Grandview, and then even Mount Mercy was 10-0, right? They haven't played as many big games yet. And then Missouri Valley's undefeated at 6-0. No real signature wins there either, but how are you kind of looking at that and breaking that down within your conference?
Yeah, as far as the Heart of America, we just got started this week. So couple big matchups we've seen. But this weekend we'll see a couple more. And that's really where we'll see, kind of I think some shift. We'll see some shift in the next rating period here. It's ultra competitive. I mean, those six top teams that you kind of talked about in the Heart, if you're not having a good day, anybody's going to beat anybody.
Yeah.
So as far as ranking right now, it's kind of been at the beginning, it was, hey, where were we last year? Where were teams finishing last year? And then we got a lot of non-conferences in there. But not a ton of where it was like, oh, this is an absolute huge win. This is an absolute huge win. Um, so I would like to, get to the next week or two, and then we'll see a lot of matchups in the Heart where we can kind of see where things are. And then we got home and away, so it's then it might flip the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. So right now, the order of your rankings within your conference goes Park, then William Penn, then Missouri Baptist, then Grandview. I would actually have it a little bit different. I personally would probably put William Penn at one. A lot of these, I think all four of these teams, or no, three of the four have one loss. Grandview is the one exception with two losses. But I've actually gotten to see everyone but you guys. Myself, we played Park, we played Grandview. William Penn was out in Chicago when we were out there, so I got to see them play in person a little bit. Uh, they all of you guys have some good wins. And then I wouldn't say anybody has bad losses, right? And so that's where it's kind of interesting. How do you rank these guys? So to me, I would probably put William Penn at number one in your conference. I probably have them at three in the country right now. Given that they had the best loss and their loss was Ottawa. And then Grandview at two, they're 7-2 right now. They've got some good wins. They played us probably the toughest of anyone, and so that's just my perception bias of actually getting to play them and getting that challenge. I think they're a very dangerous team, and they matched up as well as anybody I've seen from the serve and pass side of things, which is where we've been really good and beating teams pretty well. And then Park, I would actually put it three. They've got some pretty good wins. I think there's a pretty heavy bias based on results of last year, more so than results of this year. Their Benue win was good. They kind of smoked Benue, but the more we see Benue play, I think the more that win isn't shining as much as everyone thought that it might when that match was probably scheduled.
Sure, yeah, I'm very interested. I actually had in my notes what are we gonna see from Benue? So yeah, I mean that's a good win for Park as we say right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see later down the road.
Yeah, but that's also not a top two, top three win in the same
Right.
way that we were predicting it to be at the very start of the year. And then you guys had a nail biter against Park the other night, right? That was a 15-13 fifth set
Yep.
type of match. Talk to me a little bit about that match. I haven't seen it myself. Like what were you thinking in that match and what happened there?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we didn't play our cleanest volleyball, right? I think we had 26 serving errors. Um, nine aces, but yeah, we didn't serve the ball the way we'd like to serve the ball. We blocked pretty well. Their their 0-2 spot didn't do much for them. Neither middle did much for them. I mean, Yao Friedrich. I mean, that guy. He's one of the top
He's
players
good.
in the nation.
Yep.
So it's tough to stop him. I thought we did a decent job containing him. But yeah, at the end of the day, we just didn't. We didn't play very clean. So yeah, I give the credit to them. I thought they stayed a little more level-headed. And they definitely were the better team that day.
Yep. Now, on the GSAC side of things, right now the ranking goes in order of Masters, Vanguard, um, Ottawa, and then Menlo. And quite honestly, over the last 3 years, those have kind of been the top four teams within our conference, and it's kind of bounced around in any order. But the Vanguard has been kind of the team to beat the last couple of years. They graduated a good number of guys last year. They're a little bit different of a team, but they have some talented guys coming back too. Um, they're kind of, I would say, still right now a little bit of a big question mark, given that they just haven't had the competition yet, haven't played the games that I think people around the country want them to play yet. But that will come with conference because they're going to get a lot of top ranked games in conference, and I think that's going to be revealed pretty soon within the next 2 or 3 weeks of, how good are these guys? Are they a top team in the country or are they a top 15 team in the country, right? It could really go anywhere in between that. And then we have Ottawa. Ottawa did a great job starting out with two big wins over William Penn and who was their second
Saint
one? And
X.
St. Xavier, yeah,
Yep.
out in Chicago in that opening weekend. And then they dropped their third match to Jamestown, who had a great weekend out there as well. It seems like they're still one of the top teams in the country, but that loss kind of dropped them below. Whereas I think had they beat Jamestown, they could have jumped above Vanguard, who was 0-0 at that time as well. But that loss dropped him down a little bit. And then fourth in our conference right now is Menlo, who's traveled out to the Lord's tournament 2 weeks ago, I believe that was, and is playing some good volleyball. Last night they beat Benedictine in four, but kind of took care of that match pretty well. And it seems like they're playing some high level volleyball, and so they're about to get tested even more. I think this weekend they're out at Ottawa and ACU, or Ottawa and ACU are up there. I'm not really sure. And so that should be a very interesting weekend match.
Yeah, let's see. You
As
have Menlo at
Menlo
Ottawa.
at Menlo at Ottawa.
So
Yep.
that's gonna be a
So
big
that'll
one
be
for
this
sure.
weekend. Yeah, that'll be a huge match. I think that could go either way, depending on the night. But I know Menlo has three pins. They're all foreigners. They're pretty high level players and can bring in on any given night. I think they hit 450, something like that, last night as a team. So they were pretty efficient against Ben U. So that was kind of a really good win for them. But outside that top eight, from where I see it, I see four GSAC teams and four Heart of America teams. Where do you see is like the next best team outside of those conferences coming in here, kind of at the
Yeah.
9, 10, 11, 12 spot? Where you
Yeah,
guys have
so
that?
so my nine, and we talked briefly on them. I have been you just because I've seen them in the finals the last 3 years.
Yep, they've been
The
in the
last
last 3 years for sure.
So I mean I've seen them at the national tournament. And, I mean they're a solid team. So right now, just with I guess the injuries that they got right now and a couple of the guys out, I think that that's tough to say, oh well, yeah, sure. What did we say they are now? One and
I Yeah, they're
one and four.
one
So
in five now after
Oh, one and
last night.
five.
I think
Okay.
it was.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it's tough for me to be like, oh yeah, they don't deserve to be in the top 15. I've had some people say that to me, and I'm just like, guys, they're a good team. They got to get healthy. But I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, you have to get healthy and win games.
Yeah.
If you don't, all right, and we see a team that's the team that's on the court now for them, yeah, then it won't, then it won't be looking great for them at the end. But I mean, they got some great players over there, and Taylor does a good job, so I'm sure they're going to be there.
You know, the thing that I've noticed, and it's tough to rank them right now with where they're at, but we've played them early in the season. This is the third year now that we've done this, and we beat them the last 2 years. And what I've seen is they're much worse early in the season, and then they get it together and play some better volleyball towards the end. That's what they've done the last couple years. And that's kind of what I'm seeing right now. I just think they're not super sharp right now, and they're going to get it together. And once they hit conference, they'll start getting in a little bit more of a rhythm. And I think that's going to be helpful for them. But the other interesting thing to note for them is this is going to be their last year in the CalPAC, as they're joining the GSAC next year. And so that'll make things interesting as Menlo and Vanguard leave the GSAC. We have Benue joining the CalPAC along with St. Cat and Park Gilbert. So that'll be very interesting. All right, so you have Benue in that 9 spot. Who else do you got in that kind of 10, 11, 12 range?
Sure, we got and this is a mix here. I think with these teams you could also flip a lot here, but I had Georgetown, St. X, and Jamestown. I mean, those teams, it's tough to, really put them in a certain spot there. I mean, if we talk about Georgetown, right, 8-3, wins over Warner, Lords, Grandview, lost to Indiana Tech, Menlo, and then Grandview. Yeah, that's just where I got to have them there. I think they're a good squad. We got to see them last year. They came to Missouri Baptist last year, and I mean they brought back most of those guys
Yep.
from that squad. So I mean they're definitely good to see live, and then see them at the national tournament too. So yeah, I kind of gave them right over the St. X there. But I mean St. X, got to give them credit for that scheduling. Um, they were 0-5, right? But those losses were to top teams: Masters, Ottawa, Arizona, William Penn, Mobap, and then they had a big win over Jamestown. And then who else they got there? Judson with a win, and they got a couple other wins to make them 6-5 now. And I think they also travel. Do they travel out to you guys?
They will, yeah. And I think about 3 weeks. So that'll be very interesting. They come out and play Vanguard and us. So that'll be a fun trip. And quite honestly, I thought I haven't seen Georgetown this year. I've seen some of those guys in previous years, and they can be very talented if you hit them on the wrong night. And I think Grandview got a piece of that, right? They got them on the right night once, and then the wrong night once, and therefore they got the split there. But I think St. X is a very dangerous team that could get hot late. And they're going out and scheduling very tough throughout the whole year, as they don't have as much difficult scheduling in their conference. I think they're very likely to win their conference again, get an automatic bid to nationals. But they're going to be a well-tested team even without that conference schedule being super difficult. So that first weekend as well, when they were 0-5, their big opposite returner from last year, 6'9" Polish guy, was injured and he was out, and they got him back. And I think they're trying to figure out their lineups a little bit with their setter. They've probably got more depth than a lot of teams at the NAIA level. So they're still trying to figure out some of their lineup stuff. And so I think they're a very dangerous team.
For sure, and they're
Yeah,
they're a team, like we said, they're going to be there. They're going to be there at the end, right? So you can take some of those losses early. They're gonna win that conference, and they'll be at the national tournament. And they're gonna be a tough out for sure for whatever pool they're in.
for sure. No top team wants them in their pool
Right,
come nationals, for
right.
sure. There's always those. And then you got Jamestown, who, quite honestly, their best win was a big upset over Ottawa in that opening weekend, that third match. That was a little bit of a surprise at that time. But they played really well and pulled off the win, and have continued winning since, and now are only a one-loss team. They lost in 3 to St. X. And so I think that loss in 3 to St. X kind of drops them down into that, second tier of the 9 through 12 range. Had they beat St. X, I think we're talking about a top 5 conversation
For sure.
with them
Yep.
if they're still undefeated at that time. That's kind of where I had them after the first weekend, going 3-0 in a tough tournament. But that loss to St. X drops them a little bit, and I don't know how much more they're going to get tested throughout this year. So that's going to be the question. Um, all right. So I think the big challenge here is like, how do you rank 13, 14, 15? As these final teams in the top 15, I wrote down another 5 teams. I think there's probably 8 teams that can make an
Sure.
argument
Sure.
to be in that mix. So who are your 13, 14, 15?
So at 13, let me see. At 13, I have to give some credit to Cornerstone.
Yep.
They're 7-0, with wins over Lawrence Tech, Campbellsville, Siena Heights. And they'll also be traveling out to Arizona to get Ben U and out of Arizona. That WAC conference, it's tough right now. There's a lot of good teams. I don't know if I would say that there might not be teams that are, in that top 10 or that top 5, but I mean, Cornerstone could be a team knocking on the door. Really, what the top 5 or 6 teams in their conference also can be a little jumbled, I think.
Yeah. Who's your 14, 15 here?
So 14, I put Lawrence Tech right there. Lawrence Tech 7-1, with their only loss coming to Cornerstone. And they've had already beaten Lords and Indiana Tech. So that was that 14. And then 15, I put Indiana Tech right there, with the win over Georgetown. And then of course they have the loss to Lawrence Tech.
Yep.
Yeah, so whoever wins that conference is gonna be tough. We'll also I'll skip ahead and I'll throw Lords in there too, right? Lords is right there. I think what were they ranked at the beginning of the year?
Probably
They were
12
up there
or
somewhere.
14. I think they were 14 when we played them in that opening weekend.
They were 14. So yeah,
Yeah,
they're gonna be a team that's right there too.
yeah, yeah. And then I think, the other teams I had noted that could certainly make arguments for being in that top 15. We have Missouri Valley sitting at 6-0 right now. They have a couple transfers, I believe, last year from that Park team that made the semifinals. They're talented players. The challenge is right now they have 0 what I would call signature wins, other top 15 wins. And so they just haven't been tested yet, but they're about to get it this weekend against Grandview and William Penn. So we'll be able to tell quickly if they're in that top tier or not. Then you have Mount Mercy. Mount Mercy actually came in this last poll at number 15. They're 10-0, or I'm sorry, 10-1 now. It's kind of same boat of no signature wins. They just came off a 3-0 loss to William Penn, which, I mean, that's not a bad loss. I think they were reasonably competitive in that match. Then you have Weber International. I think they've got wins over Warner and Reinhardt. They're kind of on their own island out there in Florida. It's tough for them to schedule as many matches, right? They're only 4-0. But they're still an undefeated team, so you got to respect that. But they're ultimately coming from a one bid conference for nationals. You've got UHSP in your conference, who's 9-0, right? Still undefeated. Got to respect those undefeated teams, but no signature wins. They'll get some tough games. If they can win any, great. If not, they're going to be outside the top 15. And then at 20, kind of in that next tier, you got Campbellsville, who's 7-3 right now. They've got losses to Mount Vernon, Nazarene, Jamestown, and Cornerstone. And then they've got a win over UC Merced that's okay. They could be in that mix for knocking on the door for top 15. But honestly, I think that's probably a one big conference as well, with Georgetown being the front runner. So
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you
And if I go back, I actually had Mount Mercy and Lawrence Tech flipped. I did have Mount Mercy
okay.
at 14. Yeah, no signature wins like you talked about. They lost a three-setter against William Penn the other day. But they return a lot. They bring back, like I said, they bring back a lot, and they have a lot of new pieces too that are helping with their depth. So they're a team that I want to see get challenged, but they're going to be good. Like I said, top six in that heart, they could beat any one of them.
And they are the favorite to make it to nationals here.
Yeah,
Uh,
10 and
get,
1, 10 and 1 already, right? Yeah,
yep.
they'll probably get that host bid at 650.
Yeah, for those of you guys that are wondering what we're talking about here, Mount Mercy is hosting nationals, and so in order for them to take one of the at-large bids, all they have to do is have a record of being a 650 win percentage or better. And this is a little bit of the talk of the NAI right now. Of they kind of scheduled it in a way to almost guarantee themselves to get to that 650. They're playing a lot of games and a lot of games against some lower level teams, right? They do get challenged being in the conference they're in, but they certainly stacked some wins together this year in the way they scheduled. So, Tom, what's your opinion on that? I'm looking for a
Yeah,
hot take here.
yeah, I get it, as a host bid, but man, they're talented. So I mean, they could have went out and played a couple higher level matches, test themselves a little bit more. But yeah, like you said, they do get tested in the conference, plenty. But yeah, no, I'd like to see a little tougher schedule.
Yeah, I think, should they get wins over a Park or a William Penn or Missouri Baptist or Grandview, they shut down or Missouri Valley as well, they shut down that conversation,
Yeah, and
right? But
I'll go with the hot take here. They're gonna beat, one of those
yeah,
teams.
it-
Hopefully it's not Missouri Baptist, but no, we'll see. I mean, yeah, they're
yeah,
they're a good
yeah,
squad. They're gonna get some wins, so they'll be okay.
yeah, yeah. So once that happens, once they get those signature wins, I think that conversation completely goes away.
Yep.
But that's been kind of the story the last couple of years with Grandview hosting. In general, Grandview's always been viewed as a team like they were going to get there anyway, right? And so it didn't take a bid from someone else. And so that's
Yeah,
one of the
we have not had that in the NAI in years. I mean, I can think back to, Concordia, Irvine, all the
yeah.
way back there. I mean, they were gonna get the bid. It came to Missouri Baptist, they were gonna get the bid, and then it's been at Grandview the last couple of years. They were gonna get the bid. So yeah, this is really one of those first years. I feel like that 650 was like, oh wait a second, but no, Mount Mercy's they got a good squad. They'll be good.
Okay. Yep. Now, that being said, it's still going to come down to there's eight automatic bids. There's four at larges. Assuming I think Mount Mercy will get to that 650. That makes it three at larges, right? And so you're talking about three at large bids. I quite honestly don't see how all three of those don't go to either GSAC or Hart. I don't think anyone outside will snag one of those. Maybe even with an upset, right? Even if St. X or Georgetown or Ben U is upset in the finals of their tournament, I don't see them snagging one of those.
Sure. No,
Um,
I
and
agree 100%. Yep.
and so it looks like we got three teams that are gonna make it to nationals at the at large if they should they not win their conference, and then a couple really good teams being left out right now. And with the way the rankings are right now, let's just throw it in theory, if the coaches poll actually followed the committee's vote, right, which
Sure.
isn't the case, right? You'd
Correct.
have Masters and Park getting automatic bids if they won the tournament. You'd have Vanguard getting an at-large. You'd have Ottawa getting an at-large. You'd have William Penn getting an at-large. And then you'd have Menlo left out, Missouri Baptist left out, Grandview left out. Like that would be, I mean, it's tough. It's going
Yeah.
to be tough either way. But it's certainly going to put a little bit more pressure on these conference tournaments of you don't want to be that one team left out.
Yeah, those conference
'Cause
tournaments are going to be huge, and I think it's great for the men's game. that it just, it's going to be exciting. Yeah, those teams, there's gonna be some good teams left out. But yeah, I think it's just good for the game of volleyball, for men's volleyball.
Yeah. All right. Talk to me a little bit about, let's talk about players to watch. Like, who has been quite impressive from these teams that we've talked about today, and to the NAIA volleyball fans out there, all, I don't know how many views this video will get, 50, 100, 200, we'll see. To those fans out there, like, who should they be watching? What are the players that have kind of impressed you so far this season that you've seen?
Yeah, so this guy has fine numbers so far, but not a lot of quantity yet. But just again, seeing him in the past, he's got to be one of my players to watch. I got Landon Fuller on Ben U, right? The senior outside. I think he's only played in 4 matches so far. But he's
Yeah,
got
so he came out in the third set of our match last weekend, then didn't play the following night at Vanguard, then didn't play on Wednesday or last night for us against Menlo, and so I think he's battling some sort of injury. I'm guessing it's a shoulder injury based on the fact that in the first 2 sets they played, he was float serving, which is not his normal. So I think he was saving his shoulder a little bit. Then as we went up 2-0, they pulled him and probably said, I'm guessing Taylor probably said it's not worth additional risk of injury, is my guess of what happened, that I don't really know. But certainly a talented player when he's healthy and on.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, again, he's only, those four, it says 4 matches, and yeah, but he's hitting, he's got 4.23 kills per set, with a 386 hitting percentage. So I mean, those numbers are still great. And I've seen him do it in the past, right? He's been a great player. I think he's been, on the all tournament team a couple years. So he's gonna be there. So that's one of my players to watch.
Yep.
Next one I have on my list, got Will Anderson from Vanguard, senior opposite for them. He has 3.42 kills per set, and he's hitting a little lower at 274. But he's got to be a huge piece for them. Of course, them in your conference, you've seen him, you've seen him a lot.
I'm prepping for him on Saturday. I got you.
Right. So no, I mean I think he's a big piece for them. Definitely a player to watch. My next one, Ryan Gunn, from Georgetown. Senior outside, 4.06 kills per set, hitting 3-2-1. I think he's kind of the one that makes that team go as far as serve and pass. And then of course trying to attack at the high level for them. Yeah, they got a lot of other pieces on that team too, but Ryan's a good player. Then I go with the freshman here. I had to throw one of my guys in there. I got Alexa Mondic. Yeah, so he's a freshman from Missouri Baptist here. He's playing opposite for us. He has 3.8 kills per set. Little lower hitting percentage.
I've heard his most dangerous weapon is his serve, though. Is that correct?
Yep, I was gonna say he's got a little lower hitting percentage at 273, but yeah, his serve, he rips it. He rips it from the end line. I think he was at 1 point something the other day. He's at 0.78 right now. But yeah, that's gonna be a big part of his game is from that service line.
Yep. No, for sure. And a couple other players that I wanted to kind of point out. I was looking through the NAIA stats page, and Weber International has a kid, Thorolf Schmelzer, hitting 398 with 4.29 kills per set. That is some pretty good numbers right there. And I think the challenge when you look at stats is like some guys are a lot of production in terms of kills, and some guys very efficient. If you have a lot of kills, you get a lot of attention. It's hard to keep that high hitting efficiency when you have that much attention from opponents trying to stop you, and that's some pretty impressive numbers. And then we have Landon Krause from William Penn, talented opposite. He was the National Player of the Year 2 years ago. Right now, he's at 3.64 kills per set, hitting 373 on the year. Pretty good numbers there. And then I'll shout out one other Vanguard player other than Will Anderson here is Andrew Shevlin. He's an outside hitter. he's at 3 kills per set, hitting 364. And so he's been a little bit more consistent, a little bit more efficient. He was a guy that went in he didn't play most of the year last year, then he kind of went in during the national tournament. But very talented player coming from Southern California guy, won a national championship, was on Andrew Rowan's OCVC team. Andrew Rowan's a UCLA setter. And Shevlin's a very, very good player. And so we're getting ready to play him this weekend. And then last shout out would be, I guess, my player to watch if you're a Masters fan and on this page and watching volleyball. Our setter Patrick Paragas is having a pretty good year and running a really efficient offense. I think our team is leading the country in terms of hitting percentage. And typically, if you're leading the country with hitting percentage, you're winning a lot of games, right? Pretty strong correlation with those, and he's a main factor in that, and really, really high level setter. So that's kind of some players to watch if you're looking around the country and watching some NAIA men's volleyball. And the last piece before we wrap this up is, what are the matches to watch the next couple weeks? What are you going to be keeping an eye on? And talk a little bit about, I guess the main thing is probably the Hart Conference. What are the conference matchups?
Sure.
We're looking forward to?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I was going to say number one for Saturday is Masters Vanguard. But yeah, looking at the Hart, we have Grandview versus Missouri Valley. Missouri Valley added some park transfers from last year, so that one's going to be an interesting matchup. And then we'll have Mount Mercy. Then we'll also have park. So that one will be a big one to see. And then next Tuesday we get Mount Mercy versus Grandview. So really you kind of get to see, we get to see where Mount Mercy is. We talked about them for a while, where they can be a top team also. But yeah, that Masters Vanguard one is one circled on the calendar there. That's gonna be a good one.
And we're on the road for it too. So at Calvary Chapel High School. So Vanguard still doesn't have a gym right now, and so we're on the road, and they're on the road a little bit too. So should be a fun game for sure. Other big matches this weekend: Menlo at Ottawa, which we talked to earlier, but that's a pretty big match in the GSAT conference. Benedictine is at Ottawa. That's always quite a rivalry, honestly, within the Phoenix area. Those two schools compete pretty hard, and so that'll be a good match next Wednesday. Coming up this weekend, we have St. Xavier at Georgetown. I could see that match really going either way. We had both of those teams kind of in the same tier as we're looking at ranking. And then next week, Menlo gets another test. Masters is coming up to Menlo. And so that, between the Ottawa game this weekend and my team going up to Menlo next weekend, I think we're going to have a really good picture of, how good is this Menlo team and where are they at in the national ranking before we have our next ranking system come out. So that's kind of
that's the same, with the Hart, right? When we look at that next week, Mobap goes to William Penn, Missouri Valley goes to Mount Mercy, and then Mobap's at Grandview too. So yeah, we go to William Penn and Grandview the same weekend. So yeah, there's definitely, you get some more clarity in the conference.
Yep. And now, if you're a fan looking to watch any of these games, just go to those schools' websites, athletics websites, under their men's volleyball page and schedule. A lot of them will have links for their live stream. And so most of those, not all of them, but I would say most of them provide a free live stream. And so it shouldn't be too difficult to follow it a little bit, what's going on with NAIA men's volleyball around the country. So, Tom, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it, and thank you for joining. And we'll see if we can get another one or two of these episodes throughout the year, as things are pretty busy around here getting ready.
Right. It sounds great. Yeah. Thanks. Definitely. Thanks for having me, Jared.